2023.
2023. Wait.
This is our second episode of the
year. Yep.
But it's still the new year.
It down good, yeah. Do you when is an acceptable time to stop saying Happy New Year? Like today on that walk when someone said Happy New Year, I was like, what are you saying to me right now?
I feel like the month of January.
The whole month of January?
Yeah.
No, it's like 4 days after and then that's it. Do not tell me Happy New Year right now. It's done. It's new.
Oh, okay. Well, I feel like that's contradictory to your thoughts on what we were going to say today.
I don't think so. Okay. So I feel so Erica and I want to introduce a new segment called Not Your Therapist's Advice, because we give good advice, but it's not necessarily what your therapist would say.
We're not actually certified.
It's certified.
It did come from the poll because people said that they would like a segment on personal growth stuff. So I feel like this is like our take on personal our advice that is not from a therapist.
Yeah, because we're not therapists. Mm-hmm. But we're your therapists. Hopefully your second ones. Everybody should have an actual real therapist. But my thoughts are, because it's the new year, and like, well, obviously you guys know our thoughts on like goals and resolutions. Prefer goals, not resolutions. And I feel like when this episode comes out, we're about to hit like the mid-January mark. And so I feel like, okay, honey. They don't ever come near us until we're starting a fucking episode. You guys know our thoughts on resolutions for the new year. I'm not a fan. I like doing goals. But this episode is coming out right when we're about to hit the halfway mark for January. And I feel like not your therapist's advice is live your fucking life. I feel like that goes hand in hand with what I was saying. Like, yeah, Happy New Year. Great, it's a new year. But also like, it's just another fucking day. Mm-hmm. Like, don't get hooked up on like, okay, I haven't gone to the gym as much as I said I was going to, or I've been still like snacking on my Christmas like treats or holiday treats and all of these things, like being hard on yourself. I feel like this is the time where people are like hard on themselves because they're not hitting these resolutions that they set.
Yeah.
So my advice is live your fucking life. It's just a fucking day. And yeah, that's all. I just feel like people get so hung up on shit. I'm over it.
I get that.
Fucking day.
I feel like it's like I have a similar but different perspective, because to me it's like, yeah, you can start anytime. It's never too late type of thing, or do it whenever. Like if you don't do it today, you can try again tomorrow, anytime. So when someone's telling me, okay. My thought is that it's, to me, they're more intentions for the year.
I also just like completely gulped water and like whoop whoop. Anyway, sorry.
We got new mics. Okay, this is very scattered. All I want to say is that I think I like setting intentions for the year, which I guess can be synonymous with goals, which I guess can be synonymous with resolutions. However you want to look at it.
Yeah.
They're intentions for what you want to work on, be better, have in your life, manifest, blah, blah, blah. So when someone's wishing me Happy New Year on January 31st, I know that their intention is like good and happy and loving.
You're so sweet. You're so cute.
So anytime you want to tell me Happy New Year, go ahead. That's not really advice.
Okay, well, what, like, you being a therapist, pretend therapist to our people, like what advice do you have for people this time of year? Like now that, because my thing is like, it's so easy to set intentions, goals, resolutions during the break because you're either like in a good space or you're not working or whatever. And so now that like it's a week back at work, we've like are into the second week of work, your like routine is now going back. And we've like listened to a few good like additional things, like other podcasts about like setting habits and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I feel like now is the time where like our habits are kind of falling back to what they used to be. And people, I'm hearing so many people be so hard on themselves that they're not hitting these like
things that they set.
Right.
Well, because usually they're like night and day different than what they were doing before, which is like really hard to change your routine when you were doing something like your routine. That was your habit. And now you're trying to literally do a 180.
Your whole life. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's going to be really hard. I feel like it's like pick a small thing, pick something. Like for me, yeah, I set a lot of intentions in different categories later last year, but that this last week I was like I just need to be consistent with movement. And I was not trying to like change everything, my eating, my blah blah blah. Like I just
All
wanted
in
to
like
do
1 week.
yeah. And I didn't hit every single day, but it was also I kind of liked on the Girls Gotta Eat episode with that guy that he was like just try not to let it happen 2 days in a row.
Yes, I do. I really did like that.
So it was like, okay, whatever. Today's not necessarily a wash, but like I didn't do what I had thought that I wanted or said that I wanted, but tomorrow I'm going to do it. And then if the next day I messed up again, then that's fine. I'll just try not to keep that a consistent thing because then that's when it falls off.
Yeah, that's very true. I just think like there's a saying that like my family says that's like take small bites out of the elephant, and it's so like it's true. Like don't get upset at yourself if you are not hitting your goals, intentions, what have you, and it's the second week of January.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to be where you're at. Give yourself a round of applause for hitting the little milestones that you did. You've completed almost 2 weeks of work since after the holidays. Like that's a fucking like that's great. Like that's really fucking. It's been hard. It's been a hard week.
Yeah.
So I feel like give yourself wins when you deserve them, which is all the time. Look in the mirror and be like, you're a boss bitch, because you are. And then also don't beat yourself up for not doing the things that you said, because your whole life isn't going to change within 2 weeks just because you wrote it down in your journal a month ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not your therapist's advice. Live your fucking life.
Live your life, and it's never too late to start.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah.
But I think going off of that, one thing that we both kind of had for intentions or goals for the year was to be bold, to go on more dates, to put ourselves out there. And we both have some dates lined up.
We do. We have some dates.
Which is nerve-wracking, but
that
is it nerve-wracking or nerve-wrecking?
I think it's racking. Nerve-wracking? Because you're like racking around. That can't be right. I don't know.
Your nerve, it's nerve.
Okay, sometimes like when I don't know how to pronounce a word, I'll be like nerve-wracking. Like I just kind of like mumble the last little bit. So I can still, because I'm like, I know that this is the right use of it. It's just, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it correctly.
I'm going to look that up later. But it makes you nervous.
Yes.
It's intimidating.
Right.
And so we thought it would be fun because we think the general population of who's listening to this is people who are not married.
Yeah.
And we thought it'd be fun to do an episode on just like, should you fuck on the first date? Kind of like the intimacy side of dating, because I think that is the most intimidating part for me.
Yeah.
Is like the expectation sometimes people have, or like, how do you know when it's, should you make the move?
There's like so much that goes into it.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and I had mentioned this before, is growing up in TV shows, not necessarily my parents said anything, but it was more so like the media that I was watching growing up was like this idea of like, it's the 3 dates and then you kiss, you know, if you're younger, like the 3 dates and then you fuck. And like growing up and like being somewhat of an adult and having these first dates, like that's not true.
The 3
like,
dates?
Yeah. Like I just feel like this rule comes from nowhere.
It's
and
just fly by the seat of your pants.
Yeah. And I just feel like we should talk about it, because now that we're going on these dates, it's like intimacy and sex like is an important part of like a connection with people that you're going on dates with, or like you intend to maybe possibly have a relationship with, and we want to talk about it. So I think like just how, like, when do you know
if you're gonna
hook up?
I think, okay, clearly if you're like in the club and you're like, let's go home together, that's different. But if you're going on a date, I think you can put yourself in a situation where it's almost like, I don't want to say hard to say no, but for me it is, or
Mhm.
you're kind of like feel backed into a corner or just like whatever, I guess this is happening, is when you go on a date like at their house
Mhm.
or it's like a late night, like let's grab a drink and then go look at the
That.
stars
Yeah.
or
Oh my
something.
God.
Like there are clearly dates where you're kind of like either that's the expectation or it's going to be like really easy to do that
Yeah.
if you wanted to. And I feel like the date that I'm supposed to go on where we're playing frisbee golf, I don't think there's an expectation there, hopefully.
I hope not. That'd be weird.
And I like that because then I don't feel like then I can enjoy the date and I'm not thinking about is this going to
Yes.
happen?
Yeah.
Am I ready down there?
Am I right? I know. Yeah. Like, I feel like I would have to say every time before a first date, I shave. Every time.
Mhm.
Because I never know.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I am feeling it, so how I know if I'm going to hook up is it's hard to put it into words, but I just know.
Mm.
Sometimes I know because they're giving off feelers.
When you guys are vibing, yeah.
Well, okay, so I think there's like a few different things. I feel like when they're like the person that I'm with is like that's clearly what they're expecting,
Mhm.
and I'm like somewhat vibing with them. Sometimes I like will lower my like comfort level. This is not advice. This is just what I do. And be like, okay, well then like maybe why not? I feel like
Yeah.
there are some times where I just like something's off and I'm just like not wanting to.
Mhm.
And so I don't. But then there are like the really good times.
No. The Roomba.
Little Roomba, oh my gosh, our Roomba is about, or is it a Roomba? Yeah.
Yeah, little Roo.
Little Roo, stop.
Stop. Why? It won't. Okay. Discovering and cleaning.
Can she discover my room and we can lock her in there? Because that would be great. So I feel like, yeah, when the chemistry is really good with someone, then you're like, oh yeah, I want to.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like when you know you're gonna like hook up or you know you're gonna fuck on the first date, and this is like different than like club setting. This is like actual like met online or met in person. It's scheduled a time to go meet.
Yeah.
It's more so a bigger deal because you have to like navigate that, meaning like, okay, say you met like on a dating app or you met in person and they had like asked you out on a date or you asked them out on a date and you are going to the date and you get there and it's like a coffee shop or your instance fucking frisbee golf. And you have to somehow like, there's like levels, right? You like meet them in person and do the date, and then from there, like if you are feeling it, you have to like somehow like let them know that you're feeling it. And I like what you said about whether or not it's like at their house or not, because I feel like that is, it all depends on location as well. But I've been like one of the first dates over the summer was at some guy's house and he cooked at his house and we didn't fuck and we were literally at his house. We made out, but I was like, no, this is not a fan of this situation.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's just like a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that leads us into like, is sex better on a date or is sex better as like a one night stand?
Okay. Obviously, I think it all depends on like the person and the chemistry and how you guys are vibing.
Mhm.
I feel like the intention of hooking up is very clear when you're like, this is a one night stand. When they're texting you at 11, like clearly that's what's happening there. But I still don't think that means, okay. I think it can be better as a one night stand because usually you already have like the physical attraction there.
Right.
And so it's like, yeah, let's just like get it out of our system or whatever you want to say. Whereas a one night stand, it's like, or not a one night stand, after a date, it's can be kind of awkward. You like have more of like you know the person a little bit better. But it can also be really, really good because if you kind of already know the person and you guys are vibing,
it's like a connection.
There's that connection there, which I think can make one night stands awkward sometimes because you don't really know
you're
them.
like so
Yeah.
what's your name?
You literally like get out of my bed.
Yeah.
Or like if I'm in their place, I'm like, I want to leave now.
Yeah.
Like thank you, bye.
I think you're right. Like the actual act of having sex, I feel like is sometimes better on a one night stand because it's like it's very clear what the intentions are.
Yeah.
I think the overall like outcome from like start to saying like meeting that person to the end is better on a date, whether or not you like that person or not.
Mhm.
It's more of a connection, and then you can kind of like be like, okay, this is gonna work or it's not gonna work.
Yeah. I do think that the best sex is after you've been on multiple dates. There's some like tension building. Like if you're attracted to that person, if you're feeling it and you like don't hook up on the first date and maybe not the second or the third, like if you wait a little bit and then you do it, it can be really good.
I agree with that. I just get nervous because I feel like, as I said, like intimacy is so important. And I feel it's like something that I need to be able to know that we are going to mesh well, like intimately, or else I'm not going to waste my time. And so I feel like it's hard because it's like, what about if you are like really, really like vibing with this person and you've waited, right? Because you want to get to know them and you're like learning about them, they're learning about you, and you've waited and like the tension is like building up, and then it happens and you're just like, oh, that's what that was. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the only bad thing with it. But I think like it's also like hard because it just depends on the person.
I feel like regardless, the first time is usually like very performative.
Yeah.
Like
it's the worst.
Yeah. People are awkward. People are trying to do things that they like wouldn't usually do or like have never done before. I don't know. Like it's just like you're trying to put on a show. Like I think of peacocking.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You're just like trying to impress someone, and 9 times out of 10 it like makes it worse.
Yes.
And then you're just like,
I also think too, like everybody's so different, right? So you're like, even me, like the way that I had sex with the last person I had sex with is going to be different than how I have sex with the next person.
Yeah.
Because it's like different people and is like more enjoyable doing one thing with one person because you're comfortable doing that versus the other person, you're more comfortable doing it this way. And they're exactly the same. And so if like that's your last experience with the person that you were just with, when you show up with a new person, they're also showing up, you know, with us as a new person with their own experiences.
Yeah.
And so you're really trying to like come together. And so I think like it is, and I think like I struggle with that is I don't take that into account. Like if I do end up not even just fucking on the first date, like just fucking someone new in general, whether it's a one night stand or a date, someone that I'm like actually having a connection with, is it's really hard for me to remember like the one time isn't how it's going to be forever.
Every time. Yeah.
It's just I feel like it's important to note though, like sometimes same with like how I said about you knowing you're gonna fuck or not is kind of based on like the person. I also think like there are situations where like you do fuck or you don't fuck and you're just with that person and you just kind of know
that it would be good or bad.
No, that it would be bad. Or like
yeah.
say you like fuck on the first date or you fuck someone whatever, like you had waited and it's not good and you're kind of like, oh well, should I give it like one more try because it might change? I feel like sometimes you're like, no, I know that this isn't gonna be good forever.
I feel like you can also kind of know just by kissing them.
Oh, for sure.
Like if you guys are just like getting hot and heavy and then it's not
It's just
good.
awkward. No, yeah.
Then it's like kind of know it's not going to get any better the further you go.
Yeah. Or they're not like, I feel I like when you start to get intimate with someone, and I also don't know like the right words. I've used like sex, fuck, and intimate.
I
feel
think
like
it's all your intention.
yeah, that's true. How you show up. That's true.
Yeah.
But I think like I appreciate when I'm starting to like be intimate with someone and I have like cues, or like I don't want your entire tongue shoved down the back of my throat, or like your hands like all up in me, like,
Yeah.
and I will like give cues. If you're listening to my cues and I'm listening to your cues, even if it's not the best, I can tell like, okay, we're meeting ourselves halfway there. I feel like
Yeah.
what makes me say I don't want to hook up with you once we've like made out or kissed is the fact that like you're not listening to my body language.
Mm-hmm.
Especially during like kissing, when you're like shoving your tongue down my throat, or it's like wet and sloppy and like just so like not good.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. Okay, this is like more when you're in more of a relationship or like you've been going on lots of dates, is like I like having a debrief after sex.
A debrief? What? What?
Like, what was good about that? What could have been better? What did you enjoy? Is there anything else you want to try? Like, I like having, like, I usually will try and instigate that. And if they will talk about it, then it's like the next time is usually even better. And if they're open and communicative, then it's like you're going to listen to each other more. But if they're just kind of like not really, obviously, I'm not going to do this on a first date. This is just a side tangent. But I do think the sex gets better when you talk about it.
Oh, I agree. I just have not had that happen in so long. It's not even funny.
Me neither, but
I just think also there's just this negative stigma around fucking on the first date. And so it's just like there's pros and cons to everything.
Mhm.
And I think like a pro to fucking on the first date is you learn about their body and see if
Yeah.
it's a good fit. I feel like sometimes like you're trying to like a puzzle piece, right? If it's not going to work and you keep trying to like, this is going to be very, very visual, but if you keep trying to like shove it in and it's not going to work, it's not going to work.
yeah.
And so I think like that's the beauty of a first date, especially now, especially like our age, is I'm looking for what is gonna fit me. And
Mhm.
I'm like, that's one thing I'm grateful for, is I've kind of like shift my focus. Like I'm not out there to like go be with someone else or find a guy. Like I could find a guy if I really wanted to, but I'm trying to find someone that like fits in with the person that I'm trying to become. And if
Yeah.
it's not a good fit, then at least I know now we're not wasting our time.
Mhm.
We've did it. It's done. Let's move on.
Yeah.
I think the big con and like what I struggle with is this like actually the idea of having sex with someone new. I feel
Mhm.
like the stigma has definitely like gone away a little bit more, especially since we got older, about like, oh, what is that called? Like your body count and like
Oh my
fucking
gosh,
and all of
that's
these things.
stupid.
Like
Yeah.
all of those things are not necessarily as important as they were, I felt like, when we were a little bit younger.
Yeah.
But I do still feel like it's hard to talk about. It's not
Mhm.
something necessary. Like you and I can talk about it,
Yeah.
but it's not something like, it's not like a dinner table conversation. And I wouldn't necessarily mention it to like all of my friends that I have.
Yeah.
And not necessarily that I do wish that would change, but I think it's very hard because I think some women get in their heads. Like say they want to fuck on the first date, but they're nervous because they don't want to get that like negative like stigma around it to say that they did, or this idea of like feeling like you gave something away.
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
my thing with it. And that's what is hard. And it's more so like I don't feel judged by anybody else, but sometimes like I do judge myself.
Yeah, I get that. A few thoughts I had as you were saying it. One, when someone like talks about them hooking up with someone, or like if they hooked up with a guy and then the next night they hook up, I literally
Don't care. Yeah.
I do not judge them. As if they're having a good time, great. Like, and so I think that's something to think about, is like, do you think that about other people? Because probably not. I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully not. But
Yeah.
like, I genuinely am like, good for you or whatever. Like, you hook up with a different person every night, fine. I think it's more of like when their headspace, or when my headspace, when the headspace is like, they're looking, I shouldn't say they, but like if I'm going in with the intent of like, I have a hole and I'm hoping that's going to fill it.
Right.
Then that's when it's like unhealthy. And if I know they're like struggling, this other person in this situation is like struggling, and then they're telling me about all these hookups that they're having, it's more of like a red flag to me
Mm-hmm.
of like their self sabotaging or just kind of like not handling it in a healthy way. And I can do the exact, I mean, let's talk about the summer of last year. Like that was just not the healthiest approach.
Yeah.
Because I think I was looking for something that like within my own self I needed to figure out first.
Yeah.
And so when you're not looking for anything, when it's just like to have fun or like, I don't know, you just are feeling it, then I don't think it's as bad.
I think that makes a difference between fucking on the first date and fucking just to fuck.
Mhm.
Because I feel like sometimes we go out, and I mean, we've had this happen over summer, is like you go out not specifically looking for it, but if an opportunity presented itself, it's like not necessarily that we're trying to like, or I wouldn't say us, but me, like I'm trying to fill a hole, but it's like, I want to do it. This is what I'm going to do.
Mhm.
But I think that's kind of the beauty of fucking or not fucking on the first date is you have that conversation with someone and you can kind of start to see like what it is that they're looking for,
Yeah.
more so of like what you were saying about like filling a void or you know what it is. Because if you're talking to someone and they just have these like cues of what they're looking for in their life and it's just like, okay, you're not really interested in getting to know me as a person, set aside the whole like relationship part of it, but like actually making a connection with me, like you're here just to fuck, it's a turn off. Because I feel like a date is very much of like, I'm here to see if I can make a connection with somebody.
Yeah.
Like I'm not looking for a husband right now,
Mhm.
but I'm looking for a connection to see if maybe we can get to a point where that is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And I think like there are cues on a first date that give you that tool. Now, if you are still like okay with filling that hole, then go for it. But I think like that's what's nice about a date is the intentions are pretty clear.
Yeah, I agree.
As far as like connection or just here to fool around.
Mhm. Mhm.
I just think, what else was I going to say? Oh, that's what I was going to say is going back to like my con about how this like sometimes like I will, or if I have not necessarily on the first date or after a date have fucked somebody and I feel almost like empty or sad or that I've given it a like something away, I have learned that has now kind of shifted my perspective on what like how I actually enjoyed that date.
Yeah.
So meaning like if I am leaving a date feeling that way, I have started to realize it is less of how I'm actually feeling about like giving something away and more so of like, I think that it wasn't a good connection with this person. Because I've had times where like we do fuck on a first date and I am into it and it was fine, but then I leave feeling empty. And now I'm starting to think like, I've just viewed it as not so much being so upset at myself or feeling like I've given something away. It's more so of my body saying, you may have liked what you just did, but it's not a good fit. Something's off. And I think that has been like a real turn for me. I mean, to not be so hard on myself too, because I'm not hard. Like you were saying, like when someone comes up to me and is like, "Oh yeah, I had this date last night and we fucked, and I have this other date and he's super attractive," and I'm thinking like I'm gonna fuck him. I'm like, that's awesome. Tell me how it went.
Yeah.
I'm never like, oh my God, like what the fuck? Like I'm all for that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no one is thinking about that about me. So why am I being so hard on myself? And it's because it's not that I actually care about the act. It's more so of my body saying it's not a good fit.
Yeah. I don't want to go too far into the tangent on the concept of virginity, but I do think that especially for women, that concept of like giving something up or like you lost it or you can never get it back. That's like the only time. It's like, yeah, okay, once you have sex, you quote unquote lost your virginity. And so maybe I do think that's where that underlying feeling of like of like you're giving something up by having sex. It's just like part of the culture that we are raised in and part of the like, especially being in a religious childhood, like that concept of that's something you can never get back. You're impure now. Like
especially with all like the like sex ed and all that stuff is like they just put so much emphasis on it. So women think like it is something to like give away, but it's like, it does get easier growing up because you can just start to like think for yourself. But even still, I think sometimes like it's like in my own mind because it's been, you're giving something away. You're this precious thing that only you have that makes you pure and womanly. You're just going to give away. Like, fuck yeah, I am.
That's the thing is I think it's all like a mindset
Mm-hmm.
of like you have the power to decide who you want to be intimate with, who you want to like quote unquote give that to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think scientifically, like I don't know the details, but I do think like when you have sex with someone, there are like
Chemicals and emotions that are being brought in. Oh, for sure.
like regardless of if you even know the person or not, well, there's still like that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that like one, it's all about where your headspace is, what your intention is going into it. Are you like in a good place to where you can like have a hookup or like go on a first date, you guys have sex and like you never talk again because
Mm-hmm.
that happens, and like will you be okay if you have sex and you guys don't talk again?
Mm-hmm.
And then the concept of like owning your own power and owning the fact that like you get to decide and it's your body and listen to what you want. And I think, yeah, sometimes I do things that I need to be better about listening to my body.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'll just do things because it's like whatever. Like if they're gonna be happy or like
Oh, for sure.
it'll be fun and I'm not.
I've kind of like, especially moving forward this year, is given myself a rule of wait until at least a second date, because I think sometimes like I am very personable. I want to see the best out of like everybody. And so when we have a connection and you're able to sustain a conversation, you're like, you are attractive and obviously I'm enjoying myself and I've stayed. Sometimes I'm like, well, why not? I want to see if this is good or not. But I think like it is important to really, go on your date, have a conversation, get your questions answered, see if there's a connection there with somebody, come home and sit with it. Because I feel like sometimes I don't really sit and feel like, okay, I can have a conversation with anybody. Like I love to talk, clearly. So if I come home and I sit with the conversation that we had and I'm like, you know what? I can't stop thinking about this person. I want to see this person again. I can't wait until we can hang out again. I think like that's such a important factor, where there are sometimes like I will come home and sit with it and be like, you know what? Like
You
he
like kind of
seems
have
like
the ick.
yeah, you do. Or like there's like something in your mind where you're like, oh, you did mention that and that was weird, or that was. And so if you sit with it, then it's more so of, it has nothing to do with them. It's more so of you, of like, if you sit with it, you get to listen to your body and listen to what you actually want, because stop wasting your own fucking time. Like that's my thing, is like sometimes I'm like, you waste your time with all these fucking losers, and then you get so like this idea of going on these dates. I am like so it's like a challenge, because I'm just like, oh, it's just like a to-do list. Like I have to just check it off because this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I think that if I were just to go on the date, enjoy the date as much as I can, and then come home and sit with it, rather than like without even thinking, having any expectations, maybe I won't shave. How about that? That's a great,
It's like, sorry, can't.
Yeah. And so, I think like that's just so important, because then it stops you from wasting your own fucking time. Because then you've listened to your body and you've moved forward and said like, okay, I want to see them, and then go from there. And then if on the second date you're like, nah, I'm vibing, I really want to see what it is, then fuck it, do it.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at and what I'm going to be trying to do this year.
I think that's great. I think quickly maybe we should talk about like ways that you can set your dates up to where you, even if you're not listening to your body, or like then you're kind of forced into a situation where it's like you have to leave.
Yeah.
Or like it'd be really tricky.
Yeah.
Too.
I am no longer doing dates at people's houses. No.
Yeah.
That is
first date. No.
Absolutely not.
No.
The amount of times where I've like gone to somebody's house and one, it's a complete mess, or two, it's like you feel stuck.
Yeah.
Like you feel stuck, and if you're not having a good time, it is really hard to like get out of it.
Yeah.
You have to like come up with some fucking crazy lie, and it's just not fun, and it's too much.
Yeah.
And so I think like that's a start, is don't go to their house, or don't have them come to your house. That is
houses are a no.
Yeah, houses are a no. So what are your thoughts on like, well, I mean, you're doing frisbee, so I guess but like walks and things like that.
Active things are the best thing.
Yeah.
Some of the like best first dates that I've had were like rock climbing, I think this is going to be fun playing frisbee golf, like going on a hike, those type of things where it's like you're moving. If there's like silence in the conversation or something, it's fine
Yeah.
because you're
Doing
doing
something.
something.
Yeah.
When you're like sitting down at a restaurant, you really have to like be in conversation mode, be always on. Whereas I feel like if you're both doing an activity together, you don't have to be in that.
And it
you
takes
kind
the
of,
tension
yeah.
away. Yeah, I totally agree. I do think it's just, it says a lot about the person that I'm going with when they plan it and they say like dinner and drinks, or the people that are like, hey, do you want to like go grab coffee and go walk on the beach or something, like some there I can tell a difference of the kind of person that I'm going with. And I do think like, yeah, doing something that's like movement or going on a walk or doing something like in the middle of the
In the
day
day, yes.
is so important. Like do
Mhm.
something that's like go get a coffee, I mean like sometimes I like to eat because I'm like free meal, but it's just like so
But like
shitty.
getting like breakfast or lunch or something, I feel like
It's not as like the what's the word, like yeah, the
expectation.
expectation is so low because it's just like brunch or lunch.
And then you can easily like have a plan that you have to get to after, like have like you can make it to be where like you only have the 2 hours with that person and then sorry you gotta go.
Mhm.
Or if you have the day open and you're having a good time, then it can like turn into something more
Mhm.
if you want it to, if you guys are enjoying each other's company. But
Yeah.
if you're like, I think that was like I had a good time, I have to go to whatever,
I
then
think
you're free.
also saying that at the beginning. So when you are planning your date
Yeah.
and they're
The
asking when
expectation.
you're free on Sunday because you have an hour in between your house chores and your grocery shop. So you have given an hour window of your own time. Now, if you are like really enjoying yourself, then you can like push it back and say like, oh, I can just do that in like a little bit. Whereas like, okay, the hour's up. You've given yourself that time to do your date. Okay, now you have to go move on to the next thing, or that you have a doctor's appointment or whatever the fuck it is.
Mhm.
Like set that expectation at the very, very beginning, like before you even meet up, that this is the window when you're free,
Mhm.
so that you stay between your own boundaries. Because I think that's sometimes hard. Like when you
Yeah.
are having a good connection with someone, you're going to want to stay and have this like long talk and go on forever. But sometimes it is more beneficial to create a little bit of like okay, I only have an hour window, and then I'll be able to see like if we are enjoying ourselves, then we can move on and like find another time. Like I'm an hour free on Wednesday or next weekend or something like that. So I think that's super important to create that boundary,
Mhm.
and helps you kind of, like I said, like sit in with your emotions and your body and whether or not you want to actually fuck this person.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the time is important. I think you might think that you want to, and then you do, and then you're like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
And so when you set up the date to begin with to where it's harder to, then I think it gives you the opportunity to actually like check in with
Yeah.
yourself. If that's something you're working on, which for me I am, and I feel like I need more time, and maybe the end of this year we'll be talking and I'll be able to like know right away better or like be more in tune. But I think for
Well, I think
now,
everything is like so suggestive. Like it just depends on the person. It depends on you. But I think a lot of the people that I've spoken to about being single and tackling this being single but wanting to find a connection, we all are kind of like experiencing a lot of the same things. Well, I think we should talk about some of our first date flops.
yeah, now that we talked about all the things you should do, listen to all the things we didn't do.
Yeah. I kind of already said it, but I think the first dates that were not the best, I think one that I can think of was at his house.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't necessarily get any like icks.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, well, I did kind of. It was just, I feel like your house and your home is very like, what's the word?
A
Just
reflection of you.
yeah, and just like intimate in it of
Yeah.
itself. And it's like, I'm not even ready to see that much of you yet.
Mhm.
Like, I don't need to see the way that you decorate or how much you love fucking. I mean, I guess that was good. Like your Star Wars posters. Oh my God. This was an adult man. So I think like it just did not work out well. And then like dinner was great. I mean, he was a good cook, but it was just like, I just didn't like it. I didn't like being at his house, and I just don't think I will ever do a first date at someone's house again.
Well, I think because like they're in their most comfortable setting
yeah.
and you know nothing about them and you're like getting information overload.
Like I was dressed up and he was in like his like sweats. And I was like, this is not cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not cute. We're not like best friends. I don't fucking know you. This is weird.
So did you guys hook up?
No,
Oh, okay.
we didn't. I just was not feeling it.
Yeah.
So I said no.
That's good.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that I haven't really been on a date.
I know.
I was trying to think of a first date flop, but usually it's just like a hookup that was really shitty.
Yeah.
And I probably shouldn't have like gone home with them or yeah, when they come to my house. I want you out immediately. Please go away.
That's the only thing is like, because you never know when they're going to leave. Like, what about if they're like they want to sleep in or they snore or like, oh God, it's the worst.
You want to know a flop? When I had to drive everyone.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I had to drive everyone back to their car the day after. I mean, it didn't have to.
That wasn't a first date though.
No, it was just
for
a
either
hookup.
of us.
But it was like, this is not how I want to be spending my morning.
Yeah.
Usually when I go out and I drink too much, I already feel like groggy and the day is like not as productive as I would love it to be.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm wasting my time now taking you to your car that's like way far away
on the
from
other
my
side
house,
of town.
and like waiting for you to make sure you have your keys because I'm a nice person and you can't find it. That's just like,
It's too much.
this is too much.
Yeah.
I know.
And they're like, oh, like, can I see you again? And you're like,
you can't. But I feel like the thing that I have done in the past that isn't the best is like hook up too early to where it's like now I'm asking for a date, which like shouldn't be too much.
yeah.
And they're like,
No.
no, we already hooked up.
Yeah.
Like, let's just hook up again. We don't need to go on a date. And then I'm like, damn it.
Missed the window.
Not that they were going to work out anyway if that's their attitude, but just like, that sucks.
Mm-hmm.
That like, you already got what you wanted from this. And so I don't even get like the time or attention to like go and do something together.
I do have like kind of like a side tangent, but not really because it has to do with first dates. And this is just my experience from the summer and Thanksgiving and in wintertime is I get so irritated with first dates because of exactly what you said, this idea of peacocking, which everybody does. I do. I try to put on my best self and like best foot forward and say all the good things. Like I'm not going to come at you with all my crazy shit yet.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to wait a second. But like when you set the bar like so high, not even like so high, but at a certain level of a date and you're like really, really feeling it with the person, like you guys are vibing and I'm vibing with you. It's like clear that there's something there. Mm-hmm. And you start to like, we're like seeing each other.
Yeah.
And like as the time progressed on, fucking Jesus Christ, progressed on, the like dates just like got worse and worse and worse and worse, where it was like, okay, we're only going to go to this like shitty ass restaurant and then go back to your place. Yeah. But it was like, was it just sex for this person? Or was it like you were interested in me? Because I feel like you were interested, but then it's like, why can't we, okay, over summer it was like, let's go look at the stars and drive around and watch the sunset and do all of these fun things. But now it's like, oh, we're just going to go to the same restaurant again. It was already like we've been in a relationship for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what is happening? Yeah. So I feel like that's another reason why you should kind of, and you, meaning Ellie, me, I need to listen to my own advice, is sit and listen to your body and also not make yourself so available for this person, even especially if you are really, really connecting with them, so that you can see where their level is. Because I feel like even with my past relationship, at the very beginning of the relationship, it was like, we're traveling, we're doing this, we're seeing all of these things, we're going to all of these places. And like all of a sudden, the switch just happened where it was like, oh, all of a sudden you're a homebody. I'm like, I don't want a homebody. When did this change happen? It's because you wooed me and now I'm jumped in and like, you fucking can't get out now.
Yeah.
And so I think like that's the struggle with like dating and first dates is like this expectation. I mean, fuck, I guess the same thing could be said about me. Like, I was really cool at the first date and then became crazy, but I'm like, I just don't think that's the case. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing about a first date is like you really do try to woo the person and they're trying to woo you. So you want to fuck them to find out if it works. Whereas like sometimes it's just better if you just calm down, not make yourself so available. I'm not even talking about like sex. I'm just talking about like your own time, your own space, like allowing yourself to just stick with your own boundaries, because I do that so much where I'm like, you know what, this person is worth me not going to the grocery store tonight, or I don't really need my 8 hours of sleep. I can get 6 if I spend 2 hours. Like if I am secure in my own boundaries and they have to fit in with my schedule, then if it works and they continue to show up and do these things over time, it's like, that's great. But slowly you start to see who like kind of falls off the wagon there.
Yeah. I think you brought up a point of like setting the bar really high on the first date. And it made me think of some dates that were proposed to me that I didn't go on because the bar was so high, or it was like such an event. Like one time this guy was like, do you want to drive up to Huntington and we can go watch the surf whatever competition that was happening, and then go. And I was like, that would be really fun if I knew who the fuck you were.
Right.
But like, I don't want to drive to Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
To go do
with
that
some rando
for the whole day. And then if we're not vibing, then I'm stuck there.
Yeah.
In Huntington. And like, that just seems like so much work. It's like,
for someone you don't know.
For someone I don't know. So I think if I'm not willing to do that, then like, why am I willing to like literally have sex with them and give them that part of me too? So I think making it something that's easy to do, something fun, but not something that's like so crazy that you have to like give up your whole day for. Like there's a good in between there where it's like you're not like being intimate at their house and they're cooking you a 5-course meal. You're also not driving 2 hours to go do something all day.
Right.
But you can easily go on a walk or go
I do have to say though, like I do, and this is just me personally, is I do enjoy dates, like dinner dates, not necessarily like where we're at like a fancy restaurant, but like a bar or a winery or something like that, like a wine bar. Because like there's always atmosphere. There's like that people watching, music, something's going on. I think like that is something that I enjoy just because I do love food. And so it's always nice to like incorporate the things that I like. It's fine for the first time, but it is hard, like especially if you're in Erica and I's position where you are trying to put yourself out there and be more bold and go on more first dates or dates in general. If you go out to dinner or a brewery every time for a first date, like you're gonna get burnt out. You're annoyed. You don't want to have this. It's just not fun.
Well, and because usually the conversations are very similar too, and then you're like, "What's your favorite color?
Oh yeah.
What do you do for work?"
Yeah. And that's just never fun. I do think that's just like first dates in general, and that's what makes it so hard. Is like. I think the other person feels that way too. Is like you just gotta get through it to see if there's an actual connection, and then you can start like a little bit more like meaningful conversations.
Yeah. Well, I really think we're driving this point home. But when you do some type of like activity or something that's like not a sit-down restaurant, the conversation opportunity expands more because random things will happen, or you'll trip and fall and remember some story. I don't know. Like those type of things happen to where you can like talk about other stuff that you wouldn't normally when it's like going through the checklist of your usual first date conversation at a restaurant.
Yeah, that's true. And you just made me think of something. So back when I lived in Castro Valley, I went on a date with this Brazilian guy. So cute. He actually asked me out when I was working at the restaurant. So it was like I was like, oh my gosh, this will be such a cute story, yada, yada. We went on a hike for a waterfall hike for our first date. And let me tell you, he may have been a very attractive man, but the way that this boy moved his body, I was an automatic, I knew I wasn't going to fuck you. Because when you do something active, and this is like kind of very different from what you were just saying, but my perspective on doing something active is like, you get to see how they carry themselves and how that might carry over into the bedroom. So I'm like, if you are tripping and blah, 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 like, I don't even know how to like explain it, but I was just like, this is just weird. This is too much. And I think like, well, I wouldn't have known that if we were just like sitting down eating dinner.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's another reason why you should go do something active. That was a flop. It was a fun date and he was a good guy, but I'm just like, oh my God, you're so awkward.
Yeah, I feel that.
So yeah, fucking flops and flops of fucking. But I think like, I mean, it's a good conversation to have. I think this, like we said, a lot of the people that are listening, a lot of the conversations we have at home, that's something that we're dealing with, like, especially now, the new year, and how we're trying to figure out what it is that we want in partners and relationships and connections with people is just to go out on first dates. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to a first date, you really do think about intimacy and fucking. And so it brings up the conversation of whether or not you should. And I think regardless of if you fuck on a first date, if you don't fuck on a first date, if you wait the 3 dates, if you don't, whatever, there is absolutely no fucking judgment. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just important. Because I fucking hate that's a stigma and it shouldn't be because it's important. Intimacy is so important. And how the fuck are you going to know if it's a fit if you don't fuck them? I don't know. And whenever you decide to do that is your fucking choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that part is key is like you can do that whenever you want. I think it's also a good call out of no judgment on your own self. Mm-hmm. I think to your point of like if people in your life are judging you, then they shouldn't be in your life. But like if you're constantly judging yourself, you're kind of opening the door. Not saying it's okay, but like if people always hear you talking about bad to yourself or judging
like,
yourself,
oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I did it. Like, no.
Yeah, then it gives them the chance to be like, yeah, that probably wasn't the best idea or whatever, because you're talking that way about yourself. So it's just kind of a check to be like, are you giving yourself grace? Are you realizing like that it's okay, that it happens? If you're feeling bad about yourself, like it's easier said than done to just be like, don't judge yourself. You're fine. But like take that as a moment of self-reflection and like just remembering that like, okay, it happened. Maybe that was a like shitty situation or you didn't enjoy it. But you can move forward. Yeah. You're not stuck in that. That's not like the person you were yesterday is different than the person you are today. And
allowing yourself like space to accept who you are. Like you're in your own body and don't judge yourself. Like we're all learning. Like first dates and relationships and connections with people are difficult all around. And so not being so hard on yourself and not looking in the mirror and being so hard on yourself is like you were just saying, it is a lot easier said than done. But recognizing that it is, you know, and we've said this before, like this is all you have, you know, you are in your own body and loving yourself no matter what decisions. And if you feel like it wasn't a right decision for you at the time, take that opportunity. Like, yes, I made the wrong decision and now I'm going to grow. And that is no judgment too.
One thing I just thought of that like does make it hard is when like, yeah, it's easy to be like, I'm in control. Like I get to set the stage. But when someone else like ghosts you after or like you feel like you had a great connection and then it's like shoot they're not responding anymore or they don't want to meet again or what have you, it can be easy to like take that personally and make that a reflection of you or like how you are in bed or whatever.
For sure.
But it's like we're talking about our perspective. That other person has a perspective. Everyone's on their own journey. And also, like, isn't it great that you know now so you don't have to keep going
waste
with that?
Your time, exactly.
Yeah.
It is really hard because, especially me, like, it's not ever, I mean, not especially me, but for anybody, it's a really hard, like, thing to deal with is when you do have a connection with someone and you are liking them more than you feel that they like you, or you're not getting the response or, you know, the communication that you need. And I automatically am like, it's a mirror. It's something that I'm doing. It's the way that I look. It's the way that I'm fucking. It's all of these things. Where in reality, it's like, it may have nothing to do with me.
Mhm.
And also, this is me. So if they're not vibing with it, then it's even a greater thing for me because now I don't have to waste my time.
Yeah. And you don't need to be someone that you're not for them. That wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Long term.
It's a hard conversation to have with yourself, but it's just something to think about moving forward, especially with the new year and going on dates. And even though it's January, like I'm going to say this starting now, but like summer is right around the corner. It is going to come so fast.
Yeah.
So quick.
It's true. It's true. I had a fun summer. I do want to make that clear. Not that
No,
anyone's
it was
me.
fun. It was, like I said, it was a lot of learning this summer.
Yeah.
Learned a lot. Learned quite a bit.
Yeah, but I think this too can be applied even if you're in a relationship. Because I do like, yeah, when you're first getting to know someone, but also just that check of like, are you checking in with each other when you're being intimate? Are you checking in with yourself and listening to your body? And like, I know for myself, when I've been in relationships, I've like had sex when I like didn't really feel like it and like done things that it's like, that's still an important conversation to have regardless of if you've been with someone for 7 years or if you've been with them for 24 hours.
Yep.
Like,
absolutely.
just check in. And you're in control of your body and what you want to do. And let's go have some sex.
Yeah. Get out there and start fucking people.
Flat as fuck.
Flat as fuck. Love ya.
Love ya. Bye.